I believe the 170, the white Mazda Miata. I think the car really to look for here is actually going to be Mark Johnston, who's starting 6th overall. He's got the torque of all the, torque advantage over all these Miatas.
All right, Greg. Hey, Graham made it around the track, so we have an early green flag. And here they head on down past start-finish line.
Yeah, and it looks like as they head down, as we expected,
James Troxel in the lead.
Yeah, definitely. But we have both Ted York and Owen Sheffer and Mark Johnston have all three driven right around Lee York, who was starting on the second row. As they head out from and you have a little bit of brake smoke up in the air here, but it doesn't look like any contact and no yellow flags down to turn 1. As they come out of turn 2, heading to turn 3, it is, of course, Troxel with a commanding lead over the ITA cars. Then Ted York, then Owen Sheffer. Mark Johnston and Lee York are side by side coming out of 3, but it looks like Lee York, carrying a bit more momentum, has managed to make his way around Mark Johnston heading in the bottom half of the course.
And Chris Ettridge jumped up from 18th to 17th with a space shuttle.
That's more thrust than any Miata should ever be allowed to have. Unless he's got a solid booster rocket strapped to the roof, which is going to get ejected and sent back down to the ocean on lap 2 anyhow. He better use it while he's got it.
Well, I think he might have just a little bit of trouble getting that one by Dave Parker down in Tech.
Yeah, quite possible. Here they come, Mike.
All right, here we go. The leader, James Troxel's got about a 4-car length lead over Ted York, with Owen Sheffer pulling out, trying to make the pass right at the start-finish line on York. Takes second. Lee York got around Mark Johnston. He's now in 4th, and Johnston 5th going into 1.
Yep, now heading down into 1, we do have going late into the breaks, both Owen Sheffer and Ted York, and it looks like Owen Sheffer has taken the lead in ITA from Ted York, with Lee York still running 3rd. Now, as they come out of 2, heading into 3, both York and Sheffer are side by side. We have Sheffer to the inside, York to the outside, and as they go through 3, again, side by side, not an inch. Oh, look at this. Ted York drops 2 wheels on the exit of 3. That allows Sheffer to scoot on by, and is also giving Ted York's brother Lee the opportunity to get back up into that game for the lead in ITA.
I'll tell you, they're running pretty close up there. The top 6 cars are 3.4 seconds apart, and we know with these guys, that's not much.
And I hate to tell you this, Mike, but Mr. Ettridge must have ejected that solid booster a little bit early. He is now
back
running
at 18th.
on the tail end of the field. Yeah.
Well, hey, it's only good for 1 lap, man. A little farther back in the pack here, we know the top, I'll run through the top 10 for you right now. James Troxel's your leader. Ted York 2nd, Owen Sheffer 3rd, although they have switched. Sheffer's 2nd now, Ted York's 3rd. And we'll get back to that as the leader goes by start-finish. Still Troxel, Sheffer, Ted York, Lee York, Mark Johnston, Brent Simonson. Mosey Uretsky just got by Christopher Collins, dropping Collins to 8th. Jason Joe is 9th, and Joel Gambino 10th.
Yep, and as they head down into turn 1, Mike, it is still James Troxel in that ITR BMW again, and I think we expect him to just stay clear of the rest of the pack today. Maybe he just doesn't want to watch an ITA Miata battle again like he did yesterday.
All that could be.
And we have Owen Sheffer, who's leading coming out of 3. Ted York, again, not this time, not just 2 wheels, but drops all 4 wheels off on the outside of turn 3. Lee York, his brother, side by side as they head down to the bottom half of the course. So we might see a change in position 2 and position 3 in ITA next time around.
All right, a little farther back in the pack, the SRX-7 race. Steve Wolfsman's got a 3.5-second lead over the 2nd place running Donald Payton. Michael Root is 3rd, and Jack Burrows 4th. Johnny Garukas is 5th in the SRX-7 class.
Not to be confused with the SRF class, as I...
Hey, well, it's just a letter, man. And here comes your leader, James Troxel, around 10 with about a 15-car length lead over Owen Sheffer. Another 4 or 5 cars back to
Lee York.
Lee York,
as we thought from that bobble by Ted York, and that bobble really has allowed Owen Scheffer to open up. I don't want to call it a commanding lead, but at about 6 car lengths, it's going to be very difficult for those other Miatas in ITA to get up. Oh, now heading down into turn 1, we do have Brent Simonson. Brent in the number 41 ITA Mazda Miata attempting a pass on Mark Johnston, and as they come out of 2, heading towards turn 3, Johnston with that tremendous torque advantage over the Miata is able to hold that position and stay ahead of Simonson.
And this looks like a repeat of yesterday with a top 6 being the same guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are your regulars, and we did see one more time coming through turn 3. Your 3rd place runner in ITA, Ted York, again dropping a wheel. I mean, he's really trying to open up that turn as much as possible and maintain his speed through there. But every time he drops a wheel, it looks like it's doing just the opposite. He's losing ground to Lee York.
All right, and here comes our leader, James Troxel, round 10. Nice and smooth down the front stretch. Still about a 15-car length lead over Scheffer. Oh, and it looked like Ted York got 2 wheels into the kitty litter, kicked up a little dirt, but nothing hurting him. He's still behind his brother Lee.
Yeah, and it looks like the York brothers are, assuming Ted York can keep the car on the track, it looks like the 2 York brothers aren't worried about fighting amongst themselves this early in the race with still 16 laps out of 20 to go. But they are looking to try and make their way back up to Scheffer, who each lap has increased his lead slightly. But we will also see that it looks like now Simonson and Johnston are starting to work together as well, and they are definitely much closer to the 2 Miatas. Oh, look at this. Ted York bobble going into turn 3 this time, not on the exit, and lost a lot of momentum through that turn. I don't know if he's running old tires or if he's just got the tire pressures wrong, but that car looks like it is a handling issue right now.
Handling adventure?
Maybe. That would be safe to say. All right, and there goes the rear of the field. Chris Ettridge still running in 18th. Which means that James Troxel should be coming around 10 any second.
And as you speak,
here he is. Again, about the same length lead over Scheffer, but looks like Scheffer's pulled ahead of the York brothers a little bit now.
Yeah, he's opening up a lead each lap.
And Johnson and Simonson are starting to close in on the York brothers as they go down the front stretch.
And it looks like the closing speed of Johnson is, well, he was braking a little early. That's unusual for Johnson.
Yep, and now we have Simonson. Just as I talked the last lap that I thought those 2 drivers were going to work together, Simonson and Johnston were side by side coming through turn 3
and still are.
2, and still are as they head from 2 down to 3. Johnston is to the outside driver's right, Simonson to the inside driver's left, and as they come through turn 3, Simonson has now taken over 4th place in ITA from Mark Johnston. Mark Johnston dropping a wheel and losing a little momentum on the outside of 3.
And he actually, in the entrance, he also to 3, he slowed down a little bit. Not sure whether he made a shift or a slow shift, but he dropped a little bit, and that gave Simonson a little bit more of an advantage too at getting up the hill.
I think now we've obviously seen some of the cars dropping wheels on the exit of turn 3. Given what we're seeing, I think there might be some debris at the entrance to turn 3 as well. That cannot be an easy corner to navigate right now.
All right, here comes Troxel around 10, taking that ragged edge all the way out towards the kitty litter. Following in the same spot is Owen Scheffer, and then, of course, the York brothers. And dropping back a little bit now is Johnson and Simonson.
Yeah, that little battle between Johnson and Simonson definitely hurt their chances to stay up and battle for 3rd place overall. But as they go down in the braking zone for turn 1, Scheffer it's little by little, but Scheffer is definitely increasing that gap back to the York brothers each and every lap, each and every time through. And now as they come out of turn 2, heading into turn 3, we see the York brothers looking like Teddy is just completely shadowing Lee York as they come out of 2, or probably as they come out of 3, but Lee York definitely carrying a lot of momentum coming through 3, and while they're on this top half of the course and by the front straight, nose to tail, and definitely working the draft, it appears that the troubles that Teddy York is having through turn 3 are hurting his abilities, probably in the bottom half of the course, because he doesn't have the ability to get back on the bumper of Lee York and draft through the bottom half of the track.
Makes total sense to me, my friend. We applaud your logic, Mike.
Well, thank you, because I am typically just completely unintelligible.
All right, and here comes our leader, Troxel. He's starting to pass some back marker traffic now as he just passed 17th place Ben Seelig right at the start-finish line. Sheffer still holding second. Lee York, Ted York, Simonson, Johnston. That's your top 6.
All right, and as they head down into
Johnston out to the right into the braking zone, Greg, driver's right, and looks like he may put a pass on Simonson. He does, and can he stick it? It's an early apex for Johnston into 1.
Yeah, he hung himself way out there. I think Simonson's probably going to have an ability to get underneath him, though. And as they come out of 2, heading into 3, Simonson is now to the outside, but does not have quite enough to get back up to the door of Mark Johnston. So as they come out of 3, heading into the bottom half of the course, it is once again Mark Johnston, your 4th place runner in ITA. So we have James Troxel and his ITR BMW, your overall leader in ITA. Then we have Owen Sheffer, then Lee York, then Ted York, Brent Simonson, and Mark Johnston with 13 laps to go in this 20-lap race.
And in the ITA class, the York brothers ran the fastest laps. 126.0 for Lee and 125.7 for Ted.
Yeah, I would expect to see that as they are using the draft to work their way back up to Owen Sheffer. They should hopefully be running a little bit faster. But again, that gap that Sheffer has, it's going to be pretty tough for the York brothers to close it up.
All right, James Trox will go by start finish. Got 2 more cars he's putting a lap down. Owen Sheffer in second place is now 4.1 seconds back to York brothers, 6.9 and 7.0 for Lee and Ted Johnson, Simonson.
Mike, if I can jump in here real quick. As they're going down into turn 1, both of the York brothers needed to find their way around Jack Burrows in his Mazda RX-7, and that has given Owen Sheffer about another 4 car lengths gap as they head down to turn 3 now. That RX-7 really wreaking havoc on the front of the ITA field. As they round turn 3, Mark Johnson has now been able to open up about a 10 car length gap back to Brent Simonson in 4th.
You know, it's amazing how quickly things change on this type of racing. It was just a lap or so ago that those guys were duking it out nose to tail, and Simonson ahead of Johnston.
Yeah, I think that's just a classic case of them getting a little overexcited a little early in the race. They probably should be playing it out like the York brothers are and trying to find their way to the front of the pack rather than starting to duke it out for 4th place and 5th place as opposed to 2nd and 3rd.
Really good point, Greg. And we had, you know, when all of those 3-4 guys were bunched up, you didn't know what was going to happen. But look at Johnson. Look how much he's caught up on the York brothers. He's probably, what, 7, 8 car lengths maybe behind him now?
Yeah, as they're heading down the front straight now on lap number 10, Johnston has worked his way around Brent Simonson, who did get caught up in some traffic, and is now only about 10 car lengths in arrears of the York brothers, Lee York and Ted York. Owen Sheffer, however, still maintains about a 25 car length gap back to the number 65 and number 82 of the York brothers.
And pretty much getting close. The next time they hit the start-finish line, it'll be the halfway point. We're down to 13 cars on the lead lap.
And at the halfway point, it's time for us to announce our next group. That is Race Group 3, Spec Racer Ford and Spec Racer Ford 3. Your first call to the grid. Spec Racer Ford and Spec Racer Ford 3 to the grid, please.
Are you sure?
I'm absolutely sure. It's no ITA cars on that grid sheet.
No Spec Racer Fords?
No.
Okay.
Just Spec Racer Fords.
Okay. Hey, got to ask these questions, man. All right, here comes your leader, James Troxel, down the front stretch, going to start-finish line. His last lap was his fastest at a 1:25.19, a little slower this time. Owen Scheffer still holding station in second place, 6 seconds back. The York brothers are catching Schaefer, but do they have time to get him?
Well, as they head down into turn one, it doesn't look like they're collapsing that lead very much. But Mark Johnston has somehow managed to get right onto the rear bumper of Teddy York. So it now looks like it is a 3-car battle for second place in ITA. And this now, knowing how aggressive Mark Johnston can be, is, I think, really going to be Owen Scheffer's key or cue to just start putting his head down and drive, because he should be able to work his way even further apart from our second, third, and fourth place runners.
No question, Johnston is a great driver, and the Yorks are great drivers, but that is going to slow down the overall progress of the three of them, and going to give our boy just a little bit more of an advantage to keep that position that he's got.
And here comes Troxel around 10 down the front stretch. And nobody behind him.
I think Troxel, if he keeps his
never
mind
mind, that wasn't Troxel. Oops, that was Blake Byers.
Apparently there was nobody in front of him either, Mike.
Yeah, here comes Troxel.
There you go.
I should have noticed the green on the front. That's how it... All right, Troxel goes by 1:25.255.
Ooh, we've got a little bit of a spin here on one of the York brothers.
Yeah, that was Lee York. He's your second place runner in ITA. Dropped the wheel in the gravel on the outside of turn 10.
And look at Johnston. Johnston's getting drivers right to him into the braking zone. He's got him going into turn 1. And significantly got him by 2 car lengths.
Yeah, we'll see if he can make that stick as they come out from behind the trees and out from turn number 2. And as they head out of 2, heading into turn 3, we've got Mark Johnston and his Nissan 240 on the inside. We've got Lee York on the outside. We've got Ted York trying to also make it around on the outside. A little wiggle from Johnston sends Ted York back to his home in the gravel on the outside of the outside of turn number 3. But it looks like Lee York has gotten that second place in ITA back.
Well, that last time around, Johnson made himself part of a York sandwich when he was between both of them, and then finally got past Ted down in 1, but lost it going into 3. That's going to be a nice thing to see coming around 10 this time around.
Yeah, I think that was actually a very good recovery from Lee York. He lost a ton of momentum dropping that wheel on the outside of turn 10, and did not think he'd be able to make his way right back up to Mark Johnston.
Well, we'll find out real quick, because James Troxel just passed start-finish, Scheffer, and it looks like Johnson's part of the York sandwich again.
But he's out on driver's right, and the York brothers are left. Let's see, we've got one following Johnston around. Johnston has got the lead at this point in the threesome, going into the braking zone.
Both he and Ted York are clear of Lee York. Ted York locks up the rear brakes as they head down into turn 1, but this time I think we have Mark Johnston able to pull off that pass for second place in ITA. Yes, so we now have in the lead in ITA Owen Scheffer is coming through turn 3. As they head down to turn 3, it is Mark Johnston, then Ted York, then Lee York. This time through, Ted York once again having trouble navigating turn 3. Lee York has to let out of the gas to keep from hitting his brother as they head down the hill.
Somebody's running a little bit out of tire there, it seems like.
Well, he's been running that line and hitting 2 in the grass every lap.
Yeah. Got to be rough on those outside tires.
I needed more coffee this morning.
Yeah. And in the booth, we have a good friend of the show, a good friend of PMN, and a good friend of from In the Pits, Dave Reininger's here. Dave, grab that microphone there, buddy. Some good racing up here today at Summit Point, huh?
Yeah, it really is. That ITA race is really, really good. And, I mean, swapping the lead going down in the 1 and then getting the lead back coming out, going into 3. It's great action here. It's good to be back at Summit Point.
Well, it's good to have you back. Now, you're one of the original outside or inside turn 5ers, weren't you?
Yeah, My first race here was in 1977. Goes back, what, 38 years?
Man.
34 years this weekend. I met this lovely lady right here.
I was going to say, and the better half is here. Mrs. Reininger is here.
34 years ago this weekend, we met here at Summit Point.
Wow. What is a success story and your secret to longevity in this relationship?
I race every weekend.
You're just gone. And Dave, of course, is the spotter for what team in the Indy Racing League, Dave?
For Chip Ganassi, Tony Kanon's number 10. Those guys down at NOLA this weekend didn't take the spotter, but we'll be out at Long Beach next week.
Excellent, excellent. So you get a weekend off, and you get him for the weekend, huh? She's nodding. I'm not sure this is a good thing, but yeah, I'm here. Did you make it up to Lincoln last night?
Made it to Williams Grove.
Williams Grove, okay.
To Lincoln for the sprint cars last night. It's a triple track weekend for me, so there's the secret to the marriage.
There you go. You just stay gone.
All right, with 7 laps, we're now 6 laps to go. James Troxel goes by a start-finish line. He is your leader. Things are still heating up back there. Sheffer second. Johnson, York, and York still nose to tail as they hit the start-finish line.
Yep, and so we have Mark Johnson, who's getting a little defensive coming down the inside as he tries to make his way around the 170 Miata of Ettridge, followed by Ted York. Lee York decides to go all the way to the outside to try an over-under on Ettridge and see if he can carry the momentum and make up ground on his brother and on Mark Johnson. As they come out of turn 2, heading towards turn 3, it is Mark Johnson, then the York brothers side by side. Ted York manages to slot ahead of Lee York, but we're going to see if he can carry that speed out. And once again, Ted York getting very, very loose on the outside of turn 3. This time, however, Lee York, and this is the first time in about 3 laps, Lee York gave himself a bit of a gap and was able to make a run on his brother. And I think next time around, we're probably going to see a change in position for 3rd place in ITA.
And he didn't hit the gravel this time either.
Oops.
That may be bad luck. Kiss the gravel every week, every time in turn 3. And let's see, that puts us in a point of where we are looking again for second call for race group 3, Spec Racer Ford and Spec Racer Ford 3. This is your second call to the grid. Spec Racer Ford and Spec Racer Ford 3 to the grid, please.
James Troxel again, round 10, right by the start-finish line, followed by Owen Schiffer. And here comes the triplets, Johnson, Ted York, and Lee York, still nose to tail. Part of the cross finish line. Oh, thank you very much, Bob. Mike went crapped out on me, huh?
Wow, look at this. Mark Johnson moves all the way to the inside, but not quite in time to stop Ted York from get underneath them. And as they go down into turn 1, it is Ted York leading into turn 1. We'll see if Johnston and Lee York can do the over-under. And as they come out from behind the trees, heading down towards turn 3, it is Teddy York to the inside. It is Mark Johnson to the outside. Lee York picks Johnston to follow through turn 3.
Whoa,
but then moves underneath. Oh, yeah, a little bit of contact between Teddy York and Mark Johnston. And as they head out of turn 3 into the bottom half of the course, we do have changes in position. It is Teddy York now, your second place runner in ITA between Owen Scheffer, then Mark Johnson. Lee York got held out, and he is still running 4th.
Never a problem with a little contact with the Miata guys. They always tend to have some fun there.
Well, as a CRX driver, having come up against that Nissan 240SX, I can tell you it does not budge.
No, it gets real wide in some of those turns.
Here we go.
Oh, here they come now. The York brothers, both of them got by Johnston.
And once again, those York brothers locking nose to tail in that Miata draft as they head down turn 1 around some back marker traffic. It is Owen Scheffer first in ITA, followed by Ted York, then Lee York. Mark Johnston has managed to get himself back up to the rear bumper of Lee York. And so as they come out of turn 2, heading into turn 3, there is no apparent change of position. It is Teddy York, but we're going to have to see if Ted York can make it through turn 3 cleanly, or if this is just another opportunity for Lee York to get by. And yeah, Lee York attempted to make a pass on the outside of the exit of turn 3, and Ted York got loose.
Shut down.
Yeah, and shut him down.
Shut down.
And don't look now, but Brent Simonson has climbed into the back of that pack, so he's also now in a mix. That 3-car gaggle is now 4.
We knew that was probably going to happen. Simonson has a history of doing that kind of thing. And one of the things that was interesting about this run down the straight with Johnston and the Yorks, Johnston seemed to be hung up right just before start-finish. I don't know whether he missed a shift, but he slowed down pretty much and then picked it up again. So he may have missed a shift going down the main straight. And here they come out of 10.
All right, going around a slower moving traffic. That is Ted York, Lee York, followed by Mark Johnston. Brett Simonson a little bit back, but still in the mix there.
Chris Collins at Spec RX-7,
it's Jack Burrows in the number 71 Spec RX-7.
Yeah, Jack Burrows, is that who it was? I thought it was. I missed the number. That he found himself in the middle of a Spec or a Miata sandwich there for a while.
All right, and as they come through turn 3, Owen Sheffer manages to get by 2 RX-7s and the number 19 car of Blake Byers. And look at this, coming through 3, Ted York once again dropping wheels on the exit of the turn, giving Lee York that opportunity to make up the position and take over second place in ITA.
It's kind of interesting. You think he would have gotten back into, since he didn't have a competitive situation going on there, just all he had to do was hit his marks going through 3, that he wouldn't have dropped those wheels.
No, I think again, he's trying to carry as much speed as possible, and if anything, as we've learned from watching some of the Spec Miata races, is that trip through the gravel is almost the preferred line nowadays.
Yeah, really.
That allows you to straighten up the wheels on the exit and carry it out. But you know, we're seeing with Ted York, he's not carrying a lot of speed on the exit of the turn.
All right, and here they come, the York brothers around turn 10, followed by Johnson and Simonson. A little bit of room now, about 2 car lengths back from Lee York back to Mark Johnston. Another couple car lengths back to Brent Simonson in 6th.
And as he has for most of this race, James Troxel in his ITR E36 BMW has a commanding overall lead here. He is the only car in his class. However, Owen Sheffer now has opened up about a 45 car length gap back to the triplets, back to Ted York, Lee York, and Mark Johnston, who all 3 now drop wheels on the exit of turn number 3, once again slowing them down and allowing Brent Simonson to get back into the mix. So we have a 4-car battle for second place in ITA.
As we're winding down this particular race, it's time once again for our call to the grid. This is the 3rd and final call to the grids for Spec Racer Ford and Spec Racer Ford 3. Attention in the pit and paddock. Here's your official announcement. Attention in the pit and paddock. Spec Racer Ford and Spec Racer Ford 3 to the grid, please.
So the record skip or what?
Yeah. I would say you follow up the unofficial announcement with the official announcement.
Hey, you got to prelude. Yeah, never mind.
All right, fine. Our leader, James Troxel, just went by the start-finish line, getting the 1 to go board, followed by Owen Sheffer. Now we're waiting for York, and Johnson. Little bit of room now. It looks like Ted York has pulled out to about a 7-car length lead over Lee York. Mark Johnson trying to make the pass right at the start-finish line, going down to 1.
Yeah, and as they head down into 1, Mike, Mark Johnson.
Whoa, we have a car off, driver's right, sideways, spinning just down to the in the grass and keeps it off of the wall. What a great drive on that way.
All right, but as we watch now for 3rd place in ITA, we have Mark Johnston and Lee York are still continuing that battle. They started on the front straight. They are side by side heading into turn 3. Mark Johnson has nosed ahead at the apex of turn 3, but Lee York carrying considerably more speed. We'll have to see how this plays out.
All right, Bob, that was Mark Root that decided to take Mr. Toad's wild ride.
He sure did.
Sideways through the grass near the infield wall and kept it off the wall and got back on the track and moving again. Great job.
Lost a few positions, but kept the bodywork intact.
And go race next weekend without having to do any body damage. All right, here we go. Here is James Troxel coming around 10 for the last time, all by his lonesome. He is going to take the checkered flag. Your winner of race 2 this morning, James Troxel.
And now rounding turn 10 is Owen Sheffer. He will be your winner in ITA.
And he takes that spot. Ted York's going to take third. Now, Lee York is behind Johnston, so Johnson will finish third.